Were you able to connect it when you had these vivid dreams? Were you able to connect them with things that were going on in your life? What kind of meaning did the dreams have for you?
When I was young, I wasn't able to. You know, and this is, actually this leads into the style of dream work that I've learned to do. You know, I would pick up the dream dictionaries and it would say, well, you know, if you dream about being in a fast car, it means this, and if you dream about snakes, it means this, and it just didn't work for me. It didn't connect with me. And frankly, a lot of the dreams that I had when I was younger were nightmares, and so I was trying to forget them.
Let me ask you, because you mentioned, I mean, everyone's familiar with those symbols of, you know,
Right.
what a snake might mean and what, you know, not having your clothes on in the dream might mean in front of a group of people.
Right.
Is all that valid? I mean, do those things mean the same thing to everyone when
Absolutely
you have dreams
not.
like that?
And that's a really, really important point for people to understand, is one of the key points in the style of dream work that I do is the understanding that the dreamer is the only expert, that you are the one, ultimately, and the only one who can say what a particular dream means to you in your life.
So in Dreamwork, someone doesn't come to you and say, Dr. Mann, please explain this dream to me.
Well, people do. I mean, people try to, because that's a very attractive thing. You know, you say, okay, I've got somebody here who can tell me what this is like. But no, I say to them, well, that isn't really the way it works. And ultimately, that isn't the way you want it to work, because there really isn't anyone who can tell you what a snake means to you. You know, if you look in a Freudian book, snakes will have a particular meaning. But if you look at symbol dictionaries and in myth and legend, overall, snakes are an incredibly multivalent symbol. They mean all kinds of things. They're a symbol of the goddess and goddess energy. They're a symbol of healing. They're on the caduceus that is used as the symbol for medicine today.
Right.
They're a symbol of the ability of life to renew itself, because the snake sheds its skin and becomes new every year. Snakes can also be symbolic of the cycle of life. One of the famous dream stories is how Kekule came up with the design for the carbon ring, the benzene ring, when he was studying that all those years ago. And it was because he had a dream that had an ancient symbol of a snake swallowing its tail. And he woke up from that dream and knew that a benzene ring had 6 carbon arranged in a circle. So what's your snake mean to you? Well, that depends. Are you a person who's terribly afraid of snakes? Are you a person who grew up in the country and had a pet snake? Well, that's going to make a tremendous difference. So that's what you go back and do. You say, okay, yes, all of these symbols, all of this history is important. And if I were going to facilitate dream work with you, I might say, well, look at how snakes appear in this mythology, and this and this and this. But what you would be looking for is what's referred to as an aha experience.
I can see from what you're saying how you're connecting health with dreams, because people have to use their dreams. You're talking about using your dreams to work through problems that you might have,
Sure.
things that are troubling you, problems you might be having with your children, with your spouse, with your employer. So it sounds to me like this is therapy. I mean, in some ways you're using dreams as a tool, and in the way a therapist would, simply doing talk therapy with you to talk through problems. So is this akin to therapy?
It is, in a couple of different ways. One way is, of course, that dreams are often used in therapy. And there are specific ways that dreams can be used in a variety of therapeutic traditions. So yes, of course, there's a link there. At the same time, again, part of the message of you being the expert on your dreams is to suggest to you that you can work with your dreams in a creative and productive and potentially therapeutic way for you that may not require the assistance of a therapist. For myself, I consider myself more of a facilitator than a therapist or an analyst or an interpreter. So what I want to do with someone is to work with them and say, what do you want to get from your dreams? and then let's work to make that happen.
So do you literally, when you do that and when you say that, do you really, then you work with someone and say, okay, this is what you ultimately want to decide or work through or figure out, and this then, and you kind of guide them in how to dream, how to induce a particular dream? Is that
That
one
can be
thing?
part of it, absolutely.
And now you talk about active dreaming. So do you actually talk about in some way manipulating the dream or consciously being in the dream?
Yes.
And explain that.
Okay. It's important to be clear on this because there are a couple of different ways of doing it. One of the ways that many people may be familiar with, at least partially, is a style of dream work that's referred to as lucid dreaming, where as part of your work with your dreams, you try over time to get to the point where you are aware that you are dreaming while you're in the dream. And that can be important and helpful. I'm not very good at it yet, although my dreams are getting more lucid. Many children do this naturally. So it can be helpful with children. But there's another way of working actively with dreams that is related to Jung's active imagination approach, where, again, you use some of those meditative skills, clearing your mind and settling yourself down. And then you consciously, while you're awake, put yourself back into the dream that you dreamed last night or the week before or a couple of months before, if it's a dream that's very present for you and feels important. And you can do a number of things when you do that. You can observe the dream and notice things that you didn't see before. You can interact with dream figures, as Jung did in his active imagination way of working. You can do something that's referred to as dreaming the dream onwards. So many times the dreams that we have cut off. Sometimes
almost arbitrarily, all of a sudden.
Right, and sometimes at a very inopportune moment, you want to know what's going to happen next. Well, you can work with that.
So you can have serial dreaming and like have another chapter of the dream. And,
absolutely,
and
you can do that.
Do you work with people in groups? I mean, can groups of people work on dreams together, and how would that work?
Absolutely. In fact, that's a really powerful way to work, because then you get the benefit of everybody's insights there. I've been in groups where just marvelous things have happened. I mentioned before that what you want to look for yourself as a dreamer is that aha experience, where you suddenly say, that's what that's about. And it's a felt experience when that happens. You just, all of a sudden it clicks. Well, sometimes in group dream work, often what you do is one person shares a dream, and then other people give input. And it's done in this style of the dreamer is the expert. It's done in a way of saying, if this were my dream, to always recognize that when I give you feedback, it's my interpretation of a dream that's really yours. So I would say, if this were my dream, then the fact that you're out on that highway and the road is slippery and you don't know where you're going might mean this and this and this. But you, the dreamer, you might hear one person's feedback and you might think, no, you know, I can see that, but that's not really what it is. But then you have the thought, oh, but now I know what it is. And of course, sometimes people say something to you and it just totally clicks and you think, yes, thank you very much, that's what I needed to hear. But even when you get feedback from the group that doesn't click for you, it can precipitate the next step. So yes, doing dream work in groups can be very powerful. One of the people who pioneered this style of dreamer as the expert, if it were my dream, is a man named Jeremy Taylor, who trained as a minister and who has done group dream work in prisons and also with groups that were trying to work through very difficult community problems around racial tension, for example. So you can do a lot with it.